Welcome to the 5th episode of the 2nd season of The Pulpiteer. I'm your host, Eric Hepburn, and I'm glad to have you join us for today's episode. We're kicking off our 2nd season with an 8-episode sequence exploring the new Unitarian Universalist principles which hold love at the center. Today's episode looks at the 4th of the 6 shared values, pluralism. Now, little aside, we had an AV meltdown in the sanctuary this weekend, so the main audio for the podcast was recorded on a congregant's cell phone. Thank goodness for technology. And just to give you a heads up, I make mention early on to a trilogy of books. The authors of those books are Darren Acemoglu and James A. Robinson. The books are, in chronological order, The Economic Origins of Dictatorship and Democracy, 2005. Why Nations Fail, The Origins of Power, Prosperity, and Poverty, 2013. And finally, The Narrow Corridor, States, Societies, and the Fate of Liberty, 2019. I just thought y'all might appreciate having the more complete references. All right, here is the approach to pluralism as defined by the Unitarian Universalist Association in their 2025 revision of Article 2. Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. And with that, we'll dive into the live recording. Amen. Amen. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings. That's right, you too, buddy. That's right, you too, buddy. So, as you know, I'm a terrible nerd. There was a book that was picked for my monthly book group that I've been a member of for 20-something years called The Narrow Corridor. It's co-written by an economist and a political scientist. And when my friend chose this book for our book group, I found out that it's actually kind of the 3rd book in a series by these two authors. And so I had to go back and start at the beginning. Read the very dry academic first book, and then the sort of slightly more for public consumption second book, and then the new third book. Here's what struck me. For one thing, the word pluralism appears 97 times, I think, in the second of the 3 books. Almost never in the 3rd book, and not at all in the 1st book, but it was a huge theme of the 2nd book, and I thought, serendipity. I got to preach on that word soon. So let me try and get at the heart of what I think is this pluralism thing is about. What does it really mean to us? Like, why is it important? A word that I don't have much tolerance for is tolerance. And I think that the shallow version of pluralism is this kind of, well, we tolerate each other, right? Like, we tolerate that they're different than me. I tolerate that they think things I don't think, or like things I don't like, or want things that I don't want, or that they think that the way to get to a world where all of our children have the lives that we all agree they deserve is just so radically different from my idea of how we could possibly get there that I think they're terribly wrong, and they're going to crash the whole ship trying to get us to their version of a good finish line. So tolerance is not a great word for me. Like, it's not a good aspiration. It's like a bare minimum bar. And in my own studies and research, my feelings about diversity over time have shifted a lot. Because diversity has always been framed, or always, I'm using that word, Diversity has frequently been framed in the last 20 years as, oh, it's so nice. Like, isn't it nice? Isn't it nice that people are different? Isn't it nice to have some difference? And if you really start to study ecology deeply, you understand that diversity isn't like a nice to have. It's not the frosting on the cake. It's the infusion of oxygen that makes the whole thing rise. Like, it is a necessary chemical component to the thing being healthy. It's not just I guess I can put up with it. Really kind of irritates me that they're dipping me. It's not like that at all. It's like that tension produced by those differences is part of the engine that makes the thing move. It's not a sousson on the top. It's part of the deep, necessary reality of the thing to have this diversity, to have this tension. Let's tie this back to last week. What were we talking about? Your invitation to transformation is when you get triggered. How often do you trigger yourself? I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying usually it's somebody else. And in a way, you can predict the likelihood that somebody's going to trigger you by measuring their difference from you. The more different they are, the more likely they are to stomp on that button that you've been trying to protect. We've been talking about conflict is an invitation to deepen relationship. That's what this diversity stuff is about. Those conflicts are products of difference. They are the invitation to move the system forward by deepening our relationships with one another. Not by opting out, but by opting in. By getting more curious about the needs and wants and desires of others, of people who aren't just like us. Which in some easy to grok ways is everybody, because there's nobody like you. And then in other ways, not true at all. Oh, then again, we can count a lot of similarities between you and almost everybody else who's sitting in this room, at least. A lot of similarities in how you show up in the world, what you think, what you like, what you dislike, your concept of justice, your willingness to tolerate the sound of my voice. So let's try and dig a little deeper on this idea of what a robust pluralism looks like. Now, as you know, we live in a world where drawing boundaries between things and chopping them up into manageable pieces is a strategy that we use. It's not a bad strategy. It's a great strategy. Where is it a problem? It's a problem when we mistake the divisions for the reality. We are cutting up a holistic reality for our own analytical purposes. But then sometimes we reflect back that those divisions are real, not just tools that we use, right? So we've got the separation between science and religion. We've got the separation between politics and culture, and the separation between, a bureaucracy and the way that people live every day, right? So in academia, we call these different divisions. We treat them very authoritatively separate from each other. But this word pluralism, interestingly, is a term that bridges them all. So, for example, I'm going to give you some opposites. What is the opposite of pluralism in political science?
Singularism.
Say it good?
Singularism.
Singularism. Very good. Yes, more commonly referred to as authoritarianism or rule by one voice. Right? So we're going to try and zero in on what is important about this pluralism thing by talking first about what it's not. And then maybe if we do that around the circle, we'll start to refine what we're looking at. So in political science, the opposite of pluralism is authoritarianism, or rule by one voice for a small elite. In social sciences, such as sociology or anthropology, the opposite of pluralism is assimilation. Assimilationism is the opposite of pluralism in the social sciences. Now, one of the things that you like to say is that we don't have to think alike to love alike, right? And this hints at the deep truth of pluralism. But we all know about the pressure to conformity that exists in any social group. The pressure to conformity. And we know about the history of immigrants in America, both voluntary and involuntary immigrants to this country, being expected to change who and how they are so that they can become American, right? An expectation of homogenization, an expectation that you're going to stop doing things your way and start doing them our way, right? So this is a counter pressure against that diversity as a powerful force that we were talking about. Like maybe the tremendous innovation that we've seen out of American culture in the last 100 years had to do with all that immigration and diversity, creating all that tension and allowing all these different viewpoints to be together. In religion, the opposite of pluralism is exclusivism. I feel us teetering on the brink of this occasionally when I hear people say, entirely in a well-meaning way, oh, they're UUs, they just don't know it yet. Well, they're all really UUs, they just don't. Yeah. Do we need that kind of homogenization? I don't think we do. I think this gets us into the space where identity starts to become of more value and we're just tolerating others. But really, we think our club's the best and it would be best if everybody just joined it. I agree.
Just teasing here.
We have a big girl next Tuesday. We're going to party in my office. No, it's... What does Eckhart Tolle say? Eckhart Tolle says,
Sorry.
it's absolutely normal. I want you to hear me. You are and will and do many of the things every day or every week or every month that I preach against. And I do it. The goal is not shame. Brene Brown accurately says that shame is not a social justice tool. No. But awareness is the tool of growth and evolution. Awareness is the tool of growth and evolution. So it's not that your ego, and thank you, Bill, we're using Tolle's definition, not Freud's definition of ego, which is when your ideas about your identity get in the way of you showing up to the world. When your ideas about who you are, your identification with a group, with a status, with your own life story, get in the way of you showing up to life. So that's what Tolle means by ego. It's normal for you to have my group's better than those other group thoughts. And here's what's hard about it. Like all good truths, it's paradoxical. So part of what you're thinking is true and accurate, and part of it is deeply troubling and problematic. The part that's problematic is the invitation for you to use this as just another excuse for human supremacy. My group is better than that group, therefore we matter more, therefore we're more everything, more enlightened, more smart, more wise, more kind, and more caring. But what you're really saying is more human. We're more human than that other route. And that's the slippery slope. That's the slope that leads to dehumanization that I want you to be appropriately wary of. Because if we engage in dehumanization, we're doing the worst part of the worst things we accuse them of, whoever they is. If we are doing dehumanization, we are participating in the worst part of the worst things we accuse them of doing. And if we want to be our siblings and brothers and sisters keepers in a way that offers them a hand out of the madness, this is one of the things that we have to show how to walk through life without doing that. How to walk through life without dehumanizing others, even if they're actively engaged in dehumanizing others or trying to dehumanize you. All right, that's enough about religious exclusivism. I think everybody here is pretty comfortable with the idea that, like, in general, you are pretty good about staying on the right side of the ours isn't the one only way, right? Which is a deep problem of organized religion, that there's a belief we have found the one way, and all other ways are just, not so much. I mean, some of them are close, but they're not really, really bright like ours is, right? Now, for the most part, have stayed away from this, for the most part, but it's a normal ego thing for it to want to creep back in. But we're our best selves when we don't let it. All right. Oddly, pluralism is being discussed in economics. What is the opposite of pluralism in economics? This is a weird one. It's the neoclassical focus on the rational actor. Whoa, what? It's the Lord. All right. How many of you ever bought a car? Now, for how many of you do you really honestly feel that that was a fully rational choice? Yeah, I got a few, and, look, man, Consumer Reports exist for a reason. And some people leverage that, and they're like, for many of us, the artistic styling cues of a vehicle communicate something to us about what that car means, what it looks like, why we would want to be seen in that thing every day. And we pick cars for emotional reasons, especially in American culture where the car is such a norm. We don't know why, but we walk onto that lot and we look at that one car that we're considering, and it looked just fine in Consumer Reports, and we look at it and we sit down in it and we're like, meh, that's not my new car. Have you seen how many zeros are on this check you want me to write? That is not my new car. I'm not. Look, Brene Brown says it really well. She says, look, we are not rational beings who happen to feel. We are emotional beings who happen to be able to develop the capacity to think. There's great, one of the best studies in the world on this is there are people who've had certain kinds of brain damage, right? And the ones who lost their affective reaction to life, but have their full cognitive capacities intact, are the ones who struggle the most. They're the ones who end up committing suicide because all the choices look the same. Everything turns into that excruciating micro comparison between 3 different dishwashers that all have about the same statistics, and you couldn't care which one, but you still have to choose. Every decision in life becomes this excruciating micro comparison of characteristics. We are emotionally driven beings. People who have lost their ability to do the comparison, they get by in life just fine. They go and have jobs, they have love lives, they have relationships. The people who lost that affective part of their brain struggle. in a way that's probably only understood by people who are very far into the autism spectrum. People who just, I can't read your face, I don't know what you want, and I don't know what all these feelings everybody else is having, but I'm not having them, and it's real hard to navigate, y'all. Okay? These are the learnings that we get back from the people who have had autism in that way and the people who have been the subjects of these experiments. That's what life becomes from them. So we are emotionally driven beings who have access to rationality. Sometimes, if we take the trouble to develop it. So the opposite of being who we are and being allowed to be who we are is being reduced to homo economicus, which is the slightly pejorative term for the theory of human behavior that's like, nope, we're just 100% rational all the time. That's ridiculous. Hate to tell you, rational beings don't buy cut flowers or listen to music. Why would you waste your time with something so frivolous? I'm going to wrap us up on this note. As I was struggling with how to find the heart of this thing, Brene Brown came to mind, as she often does, and in particular when she writes about fitting in. She says that fitting in is toxic to belonging. Fitting in is the assimilation thing you were talking about a minute ago. Fitting in is, I have to change who I am, I have to change how I am in order to feel like I'm a part of this group. And here's the rub, folks, and those who've experimented with it can back me up on this. You do all that, and you still don't feel like you belong. As a matter of fact, you've taken away your chance to feel belonging by trying to fit in. And probably the people who, if they really needed you to do all that stuff to fit in, they were never going to let you belong anyway. They really want you. They wanted a mirror for their own ego. Somebody who would imitate them and reflect back how right all their choices were. Fitting in involves changing oneself to be accepted by a group, while belonging means being accepted for who you truly are. That's the heart of pluralism. The heart of pluralism is a technical construction of a worldview that's made to enable one and only one thing: for each of us to be able to find a true sense of belonging. What do we have to believe about the nature of the world to create a place where you can walk in as you and feel, I could belong here? I could belong here. As me. Not a me made slightly different or better. Not as a me conforming to somebody else's idea of a dress code or how it's appropriate to present myself. But I can show up and feel accepted just as I am, even knowing that that is a changing thing, that my own metamorphosis is continuing, my own growth and evolution and change, and I will belong today. You're welcome to beach. I got. So, the metamorphosis goes on. We have got a safe place for that. That safe place is belonging, and it is what we're trying to create when we do I apologize. We have to show up how we are. To me, for both. Christine, want me to wrap up? Yeah. When we make a mistake like I just did, we feel the feelings. That little bit of shade, like that wasn't the best me that just showed up in that set. We reach out and make a repair. We acknowledge that we don't all have the same preferences. We don't all feel the same. We don't all want the same thing every day. But if we remember that kindly about one another, we can make a space where we all belong and we can grow. Until next time, thank you for joining us on The Pulpiteer. If you enjoyed the podcast, you can help others find it by liking and subscribing. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can make a donation at sangabrieluu.org/give. The Pulpiteer podcast is a production of the San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Georgetown, Texas. The podcast is hosted by Spotify, and theme music is by John Faber. Our live recording tech crew this week was Dawn Goodall. The podcast is produced and performed by Eric Hepburn.